So you typed your address into a website and it spit out this price that made your jaw drop. Either it was way too high or it was way too low, right? Listen, I get it. But if you're thinking of selling in the Kansas City metropolitan area, you need more than just a random Zestimate to price your home. So let's break down what your house is really worth in 2025 and what to do next. And I'm going to give you some ways to find out what your property is worth. And if we've never met before, my name is Anita Cordell, and I create videos about what it's actually like to live here and work here and play here right in Kansas City. I'm also a licensed real estate agent, and I help people just like you buy, sell, relocate, and invest right here in our amazing city. So if you're considering selling this year, I want to help you do it strategically, confidently, and without guessing. So in today's market, there's a whole lot more about pricing than just looking at what your neighbor sold their house for. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 4 different ways that you can help leverage the information that is out there to help find what your property is actually worth. So here's the truth. 2025 is absolutely a dynamic market. There's interest rates that have been shifting. There's inventory that's still really tight. And in parts of Kansas City, there are people that have been waiting and waiting and waiting for months for properties to pop up on the market, go and look at, because they're just so difficult to find. Inventory is that tight. Buyers actually also too are becoming a lot more selective than what they were several years ago. In fact, I have multiple buyers that have just not been able to find anything that they really absolutely love. And from a seller's standpoint, they have to know this information. And if you as a seller are just wanting to test the market out, that's fine, but it doesn't help you in the long run because you might not necessarily be prepared for what the buyer is actually looking for and the selections that they are wanting. So if you're in a neighborhood like Brookside, homes with character and updated kitchens are absolutely flying off the market. But in Overland Park, if you're really, really close to one of the top-rated schools, then you've got instant leverage because people absolutely love that. And then there's Lee Summit or Liberty or North Kansas City, where space and having a move-in ready condition is so vital, and those finishes are dominating those specific areas. So really, a house is worth whatever someone is willing to pay for it. So when you're asking the question of what is my house actually worth, the long answer is going to depend on the market. And it's going to depend on whether or not you are asking a lender what your property is worth, a real estate agent, or the county tax assessor. So you might be asking, what is really driving the value of my home? There are 3 things that are really a top consideration for that. First of all, the top consideration is condition. Is your property move-in ready, or are you selling it as is, or is there some deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed? When I help sellers and we are starting to talk about process of selling their home, one of the first things that I ask them is, who is your target market? Especially if their property is not in move-in ready condition. Because when I go to their property and I see that, if I were to put it up on the market, I absolutely already know that they're going to get a lower offer unless they price it really low, or at least fair market value. And the reason why is because some people will want a premium price for their property, and yet it's not in premium condition. And when I say move-in ready, I'm talking about those larger ticket items been checked out and addressed. So say, for instance, if the roof is 20 years old, and even though it's not necessarily leaking, you're going to probably want a buyer that's going to want that roof replaced. The same thing with, say, an HVAC system that is 20 plus years old. It may not necessarily be broken, but it may be at the end of its life. And when you're looking at flooring or painting, or is there paint chips on the outside? Do the window frames need to be fixed? What about curb appeal? Those are all questions that need to be addressed and need to be answered for you as a seller to properly know what the condition is for the market. Again, who is your target market? Is your target market a first-time home buyer or a person who is wanting to upsize in their property? and they're not looking at an as-is property? Or are you looking for selling it as is and targeting the investors? That is the biggest decision that you have to make ultimately. And I like for you and I to have a dialogue about that, because then it will drive what needs to be done in order to prepare the property for the market. And it also will drive the time frame of when we get it listed. So condition is the first thing. Location is the next thing. And I'm not just talking about when they say location, 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 and if you are on a busy street versus tucked away in the back of the neighborhood on a cul-de-sac. Yes, that is part of the location, but the second part of that location, which goes deeper, is where exactly in the Kansas City metro area are you? Are you in Lee Summit? Are you in Overland Park? Are you in North Kansas City? Or are you on a farm? Where are you in the Kansas City metropolitan area? Because your home in one city may not necessarily be the same price per square foot in another location. So that location and condition are two. And then the third part to finding out your value is comparable sales. What has sold in and around your house in the last 3 to 6 months, and not just listed, but actually closed? I know that there are some agents that will pull up what is active on the market. And one of the first things that I learned in real estate was that when a property is active on the market, that's dream world. But the real world is the closed sales. So what I typically like to do is to focus on those properties that are sold. Now, I do look at the active properties and the pending properties, but I want to focus on the ones that actually closed on their sale. All right, so let's get into the 4 different ways that you can find out a range or what your value is on your property. The first tool that I use is called an online valuation tool. Another thing to call it is an AVM, which is an automated valuation model. I use one, and I'll put my link to mine down in the description below so that you can get a rough idea of what this tool will say that your house is actually worth. The challenge is that AVMs use a mathematical model to estimate the home values. They base it on public records like property transfers, deed of ownerships, and they even look at the tax assessment as well in this online valuation. But they also do look at recent sales or very similar properties that have sold in that area. Yet here is where a lot of homeowners get tripped up, because Zillow is one of those AVMs and they use a computer algorithm, and it doesn't know that you might have a brand new kitchen. It doesn't know that you have finished your basement. It doesn't know that maybe your neighbor backed to a very busy street, and that is the reason why it sold for less than what you should sell your property for. In fact, I had a client in Blue Springs, Missouri recently, and they were using an AVM model type number, and they were actually undervaluing their price by $35,000 based on online estimates. And that's money that you don't want to just leave on the table. This can be great to look at. I use them, but it's not necessarily what I would recommend to be your final number to stand on. AVMs, for instance, they don't consider, even the property condition of your home. And property condition, like I mentioned, is a big factor in how you determine what the property is worth. So like a rundown house that's got a lot of deferred maintenance is obviously going to be worth less than a similar property that's in good repair. Or even a property that has been updated to the hill, and it might even have smaller amounts of square feet on it, may actually be worth more than a larger property that's got some deferred maintenance to it. Now, these tools have robust data in some areas, and yet other areas it's lacking. So it's always a really good idea to just call me and go through the AVM with you. Like I said, I do use AVMs. In fact, I'm going to give you a link that you can just pop your address in there and get an AVM report sent to you. So be sure and click on the link below in the description and I can send you that. It's an automated valuation model. But we're going to talk a little bit more about some other ways. That leads me to the second way to getting a quick home value estimate is the Federal Housing Financing Agency's House Price Index Calculator. Say that really quick. For short, it's FHFA. Basically, this is a repeat sales technique that assesses the market value fluctuations. So this method analyzes millions of mortgage transactions dating all the way back to the 1970s, and they track a home's value change between sales to help estimate the overall market trends. So they'll take your property when it was purchased and then your property when it was purchased again and track those home value changes. Now the third way is to get a comparative market analysis. So this comparative market analysis is not as detailed as a professional appraisal, which is what I'm going to talk about here in a second, but a CMA, it will evaluate your home and it will evaluate the market, and it will give an estimated home value typically for listing purposes. And this value can change, obviously. So if you are looking at selling your property, whether it's a week or a year, obviously if I give you a comparative market analysis now, it's going to change in a year. Now I will say this, that appraisals as well as AVMs, they both rely on recent sales price or comparable properties. I call them comps. That helps to determine market value. Where a comparative market analysis, what I do is the same in the sense that I pull those recent sales, I pull the comps, but yet I go into a deeper dive of what you've done in the property or if there's any deferred maintenance. And so then we can find a range of what your property is actually worth based upon the condition of your property, which again, automated valuation models don't always take that into consideration. And the CNA is something that I do, part of my job, and all of that is information that can be given to you without hiring an appraiser, but it does still require careful judgment and some consideration and conversations. When I'm pulling those comps, I like to consider properties that a buyer might be interested in if your home were not available. So right now your home is not available, you're trying to see what the value of it is worth, but there's buyers out there that would absolutely want to purchase your property. And so I look at comparable properties that are similar to yours in size, location, condition, upgrades that you've done, and maybe even the size of the lot. After selecting comparable properties, the process actually becomes a little more nuanced. We together will need to adjust the pricing for any discrepancies that we find that are online between your home and the chosen comps that I use. For instance, we would need to add value to your property if your home had, say, an extra bedroom or an extra bathroom or an extra car garage, or there was some other unique feature about your property that really made it stand out. And then once the adjustments are made, then you consider the highest and the lowest comparable properties and see how far off they are from each other and where your property fits in. And I will say this, that it is absolutely critical to remember that we are in a volatile market and home price data can quickly become obsolete. So information from sales just a few months prior may not necessarily be accurate or reflect the current market conditions. So you always want to keep that into consideration when you're looking at CMAs. The fourth way to find your home value is to hire a professional appraiser. I will recommend sellers do this, especially if their property has some really unique features and we just don't know the exact amount of value that it's going to bring for their home. I will also have a seller go ahead and hire an appraiser to come out, maybe to follow off of my CMA, because when you're determining a home's value, lenders will hire appraisers to come and they require a home appraisal to be done before they even approve of a mortgage. If you're selling your property and somebody pays cash for it, then they have the option to hire a private appraiser or to not do one at all. However, property owners can also hire an appraiser, and that way they can get an estimate of what their home is worth before it even goes up on the market. Oftentimes, if you are a luxury property or if you have a property that sits on a lot of land, those are instances where it is highly recommended to go ahead and hire an appraiser so that we have an accurate value based upon my comparables and based on the appraiser's comparables. We can work together to help with that. Now, appraisers, they do consider several key factors. Location is one, and this includes like a broader region, a city, a specific neighborhood. They do also look at the property characteristics, and this encompasses details about the house itself, any improvements that have been made, and then the land that it occupies. And then obviously they look at comparable properties. They analyze sales, listings, vacancies, costs, depreciation, and any other relative factors that are similar to other properties that have sold in the neighborhood or around the surrounding areas. And all of this information is compiled together in an official report, and it's provided with a final opinion of what the home's value is based upon that appraiser's data and their experience. Now, one would think that an appraisal report is absolutely the best way to go about finding out your property's value, especially if you are a luxury property or you are on some land. While appraisers are definitely more comprehensive than online estimates, they are not infallible. If you are a mortgage applicant and you believe that an appraiser's evaluation was unfair or inaccurate, you actually have the right to file a reconsider of value with your lender, especially if you are in the works of purchasing a property. So understanding your home's value extends way beyond buying and selling. It is crucial for refinances, home equity line of credits, calculating annual property taxes, giving you greater control over all of these financial processes. For instance, if you believe that your property tax assessment is too high, then you can actually appeal to your local assessor's office with evidence to support your case. And this could potentially lower your tax bill, which is happening right now in Jackson County. There are so many people who have filed an appeal for their taxes. So I've helped hundreds of people with that process. So there is an importance in knowing the value of your property. So in the Kansas City area, the average home prices are up about 4% year over year, but it's not like a one size fits all. Homes that are under $400,000 in the North Kansas City area are still getting quick offers, but luxury homes, those are sitting a little longer unless they are staged or they're priced very strategically. The right pricing strategy is not just about numbers, it's also about psychology. You are going to want to price to attract, not repel. And you're going to want to build momentum from even before day one that it hits the market. I like to build momentum as soon as it goes into our MLS system in the coming soon section. I like to make sure that I give anticipation for the market and what's happening, and to show the people who are looking in this area the importance of knowing the details about these properties. I like to just spur that momentum and get it going even before it actually gets on the market for people to look at and when it goes active. So if you are thinking about selling, the first step is not guessing, it's getting clarity. And that's why I created a very simple, customized tool to help you understand your home's real value based on Kansas City's actual sales data. So just click on the link below to request your free home value report. There's no pressure, there's just data there. It is the AVM. But if you want a more deeper dive into it, I run the comps and I'll send you a personalized breakdown and even bring it by as well. So just click on the link below and I will help you out with that. Also in the description below is my contact information, including a link that goes right to my calendar. And on this link, you can just click on it and pick a day and time that works best for you. And we can go ahead and start the process of talking together about your real estate goals, whether it's a week or a year from now. You deserve to sell with confidence and clarity. So if you have found this video helpful, hit that like button and subscribe as well for more weekly videos, whether it's buying or selling. Also, write in the comment below your zip code and your neighborhood. You just might find it all in the next video with the shout out. Hi, I'm Anita Cordell, and I help Kansas City homeowners sell smart and move forward. See you next week, and to buy or sell, call Anita Cordell.